I found the note on the desk 5 minutes after checking in. It was folded neatly, placed exactly in the center of the room's writing table. I hadn't noticed it when I dropped my keys or tossed my backpack onto the bed. It wasn't hotel stationery either. It was just a square of lined paper, slightly yellowed at the corners, as if it had been folded and refolded more times than made sense. The handwriting was small, controlled, almost too neat. He knows you're not alone. That was all it said. No name, no signature, no explanation. Just that single, awful sentence. At first I thought maybe it was a joke. Maybe the cleaning staff had a weird sense of humor. Or maybe the last guest left it as some creepy prank. But something about it didn't feel playful. It didn't feel staged. I picked it up and turned it over. No markings, no hotel logo. Nothing. The paper was cold, as if it had just come in from outside. I don't scare easily. I've stayed in my fair share of rundown roadside motels and backwoods lodges. I've dealt with bugs in the sink, banging heaters, and sketchy guests yelling through paper-thin walls. But this was different. The room was ordinary enough. Beige walls, 2 nightstands, a small television bolted to the dresser, 1 bed, queen size, with perfectly tucked white sheets, a dusty curtain drawn over the window that looked out into a parking lot. All painfully standard, but something in the air felt off, as if I had walked into a room that wasn't quite mine, where everything was just a few degrees out of place. I set the note back down. Then I checked the closet. Empty. Bathroom? Also empty. I opened the door and peeked into the hallway. Carpeted. Quiet. No movement. Still, that sentence burrowed into me. He knows you're not alone. But I was alone. I'd driven 6 hours from Minneapolis to this off-the-highway inn in the middle of rural Wisconsin. I was there to photograph abandoned barns for a freelance job, and the nearest available hotel had looked decent enough online. My phone barely had a signal out here, which I'd figured would help me focus. But now, I wasn't so sure. I grabbed the note again and slipped it into my jacket pocket. Part of me thought I should go downstairs and ask the front desk if anyone had reported something weird. But what would I say? Hey, someone left a creepy note in my room, and now I feel like I'm being watched? Instead, I locked the door. Twice. Then dragged the chair from the desk over and wedged it under the handle. Childish, maybe. But it made me feel better. Night came quickly. The kind of country dark that swallows everything. I tried to watch TV, but the signal was fuzzy. Tried to scroll on my phone, but I had 1 bar and no Wi-Fi. I ended up just lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering what the hell the note meant. That's when I heard it. A knock. Not at the door, from inside the room. Soft. Faint. Like fingertips tapping on glass. My eyes moved slowly toward the window, but the curtain was still shut. The knock came again. 3 soft taps. I sat up, heart pounding. The sound was coming from the inside of the window. I swear it was. Not from outside, not from the hallway. Inside the room. I stood up, grabbed my phone for a flashlight, and crossed to the window. When I pulled back the curtain, there was nothing there. Nothing outside. Just the glow of the motel sign and the still, empty parking lot. And yet, the inside of the glass was smudged, like the greasy imprint of a hand had dragged slowly across it. I didn't sleep that night. The sun came up gray, that kind of cloudy Midwest morning where the light doesn't really wake you. It just sort of dulls the darkness. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, just staring at the smudge on the inside of the window. It was still there. Still shaped like a dragging palm and 4 long fingers. I didn't clean it. I didn't touch it. I just packed my gear and went out early, figuring if I was going to lose my mind in some motel, I might as well do it with a camera in hand, on a dirt road, and not alone inside a beige box with whispering walls. The shoot went fine. Cold wind, overcast skies, quiet barns that looked half asleep. I got some good frames. But the entire time, I kept checking my phone. No notifications, no texts, not even spam. When I came back that afternoon, the room had been cleaned. The bed was redone, the towels changed, and the trash emptied. But the note? It was still on the desk, exactly where I first found it. I stood in the doorway, holding the key in one hand, barely able to breathe. I'd taken that note with me. I was sure I had. I remembered sliding it into my jacket pocket. I could still feel the crease where it had folded. But there it was, square and still, resting on the desk, like it had never left. I walked over and checked my jacket. The pocket was empty. That night, I went down to the front desk, just to talk, just to ask. There was a young guy working the night shift, maybe 21. Looked bored out of his mind. I tried to keep my tone casual. "Hey, weird question. Do you guys ever get prank notes in the rooms? You know, from past guests?" He frowned. "Like what?" I hesitated, then told him what mine said. Word for word. He stared at me, quiet for a beat too long, then shook his head. "Nope, nothing like that," he said. "Want me to switch you to a different room?" I said no. I don't know why. Maybe part of me needed to see it through. Maybe I wanted to prove to myself that it was nothing, that there was some simple explanation, that I hadn't started unraveling. But when I got back upstairs, the lights in my room were already on, and the television, still fuzzy, was tuned to static. I hadn't left either on. I checked the window again. The smudge was gone. But now there was something else. On the mirror in the bathroom, I didn't notice it right away. Just a blur at the edge of the reflection while I was washing my hands. But when I looked closer, I saw it. A fingerprint. Only one. Right in the center of the glass. Dead center. Like someone had pressed their thumb against it while staring into their own face. I reached up to wipe it away, and stopped. Because just below the fingerprint, so faint I almost missed it, were words. Written in something like the fog left behind by a hot shower. But I hadn't used the shower. I hadn't turned on any hot water. And yet, the message was there. "You're still not alone." My body felt cold all over. Not just goosebumps, wrong. Like the room had tilted and I was no longer standing level with the floor. I turned off the light, grabbed my coat, and left. I drove. I didn't know where I was going. Just away. I ended up at a diner off the highway. It was nearly empty, just two truckers at the far end, and a waitress who looked like she'd been there since the 1970s. I sat at the counter and ordered coffee, even though my hands were shaking too much to hold the cup. She noticed. She asked if I was okay. I almost said no. I almost told her everything. But instead, I just asked one thing. "That motel a few miles back, the inn with the green sign, do a lot of people stay there?" She frowned, then gave a small shake of her head. "Not really. Not anymore." I asked her why. She shrugged. "People say it's weird. Gives them the creeps." "Creeps like what?" She leaned in and lowered her voice. "A few years back, someone died there. Man from out of state. Came alone. Left a note. Then," she didn't finish the sentence. Just gave me that look people give when they think they've already said too much. I didn't ask for more. I paid and went back to the motel around midnight. The note was still on the desk. Only this time, a second one had been slid under the door. Same paper. Same handwriting. But this time, only one word. Closer. I don't remember falling asleep. I just remember waking up to the sound of the heater clicking off, and the room being cold. Too cold. The kind of cold that doesn't feel like a broken thermostat. It feels like the room itself is watching you hold your breath. I sat up in the dark, afraid to move. The television was still off, the light in the bathroom was still on, and both notes were still exactly where I left them, on the desk, side by side. One said, "He knows that you're not alone." The other, "Closer." But something was different. The chair at the desk, it had moved, just slightly, angled toward the bed now, just enough to make me wonder if I'd imagined it. I stared at it for a full minute, didn't blink. Then slowly, almost against my own will, I got out of bed. I crossed the room. I turned the chair back toward the desk. I didn't sit. I didn't want my back to the room. Instead, I looked in the mirror again, half expecting that single fingerprint to still be there. But it wasn't. The glass was perfectly clear. Except now, the fog wasn't on the mirror. It was inside the shower. The bathroom was warm. The air misted with steam. The curtain was pulled all the way closed. But I hadn't used the shower, and the heat hadn't kicked in. I reached out, slowly, pulled the curtain back. Nothing, just water beating on the tiles, as if someone had just been there. Still dripping, still fresh, still impossibly warm. I backed away. I don't think I even made a sound. But then I saw it, on the fogged tile just above the faucet. 3 letters, carved in with something sharp. Run. That was enough. I grabbed my bags, notes and all, and ran for the car. Didn't check out. Didn't turn off the lights. Just left. The motel was behind me in seconds. The night road stretched out ahead like some black vein, pulsing with yellow lane markings and nothing else. I drove until the sun came up. At one point, maybe 3 hours in, I stopped at a gas station. The clerk didn't say anything when I walked in, but I must have looked like I'd seen something I wasn't supposed to. He didn't ask, just nodded and gave me a coffee on the house. I didn't go home that day. I booked a different hotel, on the other side of the state. Modern, well-lit, clean. I even laughed a little when I walked into the lobby. It felt absurd, like maybe I had imagined it all. That night, I slept with the TV on, the hallway light spilling in under the door. No knocks, no notes, no fingerprints, until morning. When I checked out, the woman at the front desk handed me an envelope, said someone left it for me. I asked when. She said it wasn't there when she arrived, that it must have been dropped off during the night. I opened it in the car. There was no writing, just a single photograph. It showed my old motel room, room 12. Same lamp, same desk, same chair, only in the photo. I was sitting in the chair, head tilted, eyes open, face pale. Behind me, in the blurry corner of the mirror, barely visible, was someone else. Standing, watching. I dropped the photo, left it on the floor of the rental, and I haven't spoken about this since. Not until now. Because last night, I found another envelope on my front porch. Inside was a piece of glass, bathroom mirror glass, cracked, scratched into the center. He knows you talked. I hadn't planned to stay the night. It was supposed to be a one-day work trip, in and out. But the meeting ran late, and a snowstorm swept through the area, shutting down the freeway. I didn't feel like risking black ice at midnight, so I grabbed a last-minute room in a roadside hotel just off Route 6. The sign outside blinked vacancy in flickering red. It was the kind of place that didn't ask many questions. A long, L-shaped building with thin walls and buzzing lights. A lobby that smelled like burned coffee and old carpet cleaner. The clerk was young, distracted, wearing a hoodie under his uniform vest, eyes fixed on his phone as he handed me the key card. Room 209, second floor, end of the hall. I passed maybe 3 other doors with faded numbers as I made my way down the hallway. No sounds behind them, no light under the cracks. Just an eerie kind of stillness that felt heavier than the weather outside. My room was clean enough, nothing fancy. A narrow bed, a desk, an old TV bolted to the dresser. I kicked off my boots, took a quick shower, and fell onto the bed with the intent to pass out. But the ceiling had other plans. Around 1:40 a.m., I heard footsteps. Not just the occasional thump you might expect in a hotel. These were heavy, deliberate, and directly above me. Pacing. Pausing. Then pacing again. It sounded like someone dragging something. Furniture, maybe. Across the floor. I waited. Maybe it was someone settling in. But the sounds kept going. Back and forth. Drag, thud, drag, thud. And every so often, the creak of something shifting. Wood straining under weight. At 2:30 a.m., I'd had enough. I put on sweatpants and my coat, slipped out into the hallway, and looked up. Room 309 would be directly above mine. But here's the thing. There was no third floor. The building was 2 stories. I'd seen it from the outside. I walked back into the room and stood in the center. The noise continued. Less rhythmic now. Almost wandering. I called the front desk. Let it ring. No answer. So I walked down. The hallway was dead silent, carpet muffling my steps. When I turned the corner and entered the lobby, the same kid was there, scrolling on his phone like nothing had changed. The TV behind him played an infomercial with the volume way down. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my tone calm. "There's someone walking around above my room. You think you could maybe ask them to keep it down?" The clerk blinked and gave a slow, confused tilt of his head. "Above your room?" "Yeah. I'm in 209. He stared for a second too long. "Sir, we don't have any rooms above 209. I frowned. "There's a second floor." He held up a hand. "Right. You're on the second floor. There's no floor above it. You're the only one checked in." He turned the monitor toward me. The booking screen showed exactly that. 1 active guest. Me. I didn't say anything, just stood there, suddenly aware of how quiet the lobby was. Even the infomercial had cut to static. "I mean, I can go check," he offered. I nodded. "Please." He grabbed a flashlight from behind the desk and stepped out from the counter. I followed him to the stairs, every step sounding louder than it should in the stillness. He walked all the way down the hall to my room, then stopped, shined the light upward, then back down toward me. He didn't say it, but the look in his eyes confirmed it. There was no third floor. I didn't go back to the room right away. Instead, I sat in the lobby with a paper cup of stale coffee, watching the front desk clerk scroll through his phone like none of this was weird. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I'd imagined the whole thing. The footsteps, the dragging. Maybe it was the kind of noise buildings make when they settle, or maybe I'd just been more tired than I thought. At 3:12 a.m., I went back upstairs. The hallway was still silent. My room was exactly as I left it. No weird drafts, no cold spots. I even checked the ceiling, tapping it gently with a broom handle I'd borrowed from the supply closet. Nothing above but drywall. I lay back in bed and stared at the ceiling. Then, at 3:36 a.m., it started again. Softer this time, a slow, deliberate dragging sound, like bare feet sliding across the floor. Not walking, just movement. I sat up. This time it wasn't above me. It was in the hallway, right outside my room. I got up slowly and tiptoed to the door. No peephole, just a thin gap under the door, letting in slivers of light from the hallway. The sound stopped. I crouched down and looked through the gap. Nothing. Empty hallway. A flickering overhead light near the stairwell. I pressed my ear to the door. Silence. Then 3 gentle taps. Not hard, not aggressive. Just light knocks, like someone was trying to be polite. I froze. They came again. 3 knocks. Then nothing. I stood there, heart racing, for what felt like forever. Finally, I found the courage to whisper, "Who's there?" No reply. I waited. Nothing. I slowly unlocked the door, cracked it open an inch, and peered into the hallway. Empty. The light above the stairs buzzed once, then steadied. I shut the door again, locked it, bolted it. This time, I turned the TV on, left the lights on, and stayed sitting in the desk chair facing the door, just watching, listening. I didn't sleep. Morning came slowly, filtering through the dusty window blinds. Around 7 a.m., I went down to the lobby to check out. The kid from the night shift was gone. In his place was an older man with gray hair and glasses, flipping through a ledger. "Room 209, I said, just checking out. He glanced up and smiled. "Of course. How was your stay?" I hesitated. "Fine," I said finally. "Weird night." He nodded like he'd heard that before. I decided to press it. "You've worked here a long time?" "Since the place opened." "Ever had anyone hear things? At night?" He looked at me for a long second. Then he closed the ledger. "There's no third floor," he said softly, not smiling now. "I know." "You're not the first to ask." He slid a folded note across the desk toward me. "Someone left this years ago. I keep it. Don't know why." I unfolded it. In shaky handwriting, the note said, "If you hear footsteps upstairs, stay in your room. Don't open the door. He only knocks for the living." I looked up. The man was already back to his paperwork, like he hadn't said a word. I left the hotel without another word. The sun was too bright for how little I'd slept, and the cold morning air felt heavier than it should have. I didn't even stop for breakfast. Just got in my car and drove. But I couldn't stop thinking about that note. I must have read it a dozen times before I crumpled it up and shoved it in the glove compartment. Every line echoed in my mind. He only knocks for the living. What the hell did that even mean? By the time I got back home that evening, I convinced myself it had all been some bizarre prank. A creepy old building, overactive imagination, maybe even sleep deprivation playing tricks on me. But that night, I woke up at 3:34 a.m., not because of a noise, because of silence. My apartment faces a busy street. Cars, people, the occasional siren. That night, nothing. Just dead quiet. Then a knock. Not at the front door, from inside the apartment. 3 gentle taps. It came from the hallway, from the door to my coat closet. I didn't move. I barely breathed. The air felt wrong, heavy, like something was holding it down. I could feel pressure in my ears, like I was underwater. The knock came again. Just 3 soft taps. No rattling. No footsteps. I slowly reached for my phone. No signal. I don't even remember standing up, but I must have. I found myself walking toward the closet, barefoot, the wood floor cold under my feet. My body moved without asking me first. The closer I got, the more I felt it. Something was standing on the other side. I whispered, "Who's there?" No reply. Just one final knock. Slower this time. Almost deliberate. I touched the doorknob. It was freezing. And then it stopped. Everything. No more pressure in the air. No more presence. I opened the closet door in a sudden burst of panic. Nothing. Just coats. A broom. But I noticed something strange. The old duffel bag on the floor, I hadn't used it in years, was unzipped. Inside, tucked between folded clothes, was a folded piece of hotel stationery. I took it out. My name was on it. And below it, a new message, written in the same shaky handwriting. "You left the door open. He followed you." I moved out 2 days later, changed my number, deleted my online profiles. I never returned to that town. Never booked another hotel that didn't have at least 4 stars and a security camera at every hallway. But here's the thing. I still wake up at 3:34 a.m. Not every night, just sometimes. And when I do, I listen for the knock, because if I hear it again, I don't think I'll be able to stop myself from answering.